Hi, and welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are really excited to talk to you about the AmeriCorps VISTA program. But before we get started, let's see who's on the chat with us today. We do have a few questions for you. So in the chat, let us know where you're calling in from, city and state, if you're currently in school, what school you're attending, and what inspired you to join us today. Drop your answer in the chat and we'll try to answer it. We have a lot of people today, so this is very exciting. I'll give you guys a couple of minutes to do that. In the meantime, I would like to introduce. Slide, please. Hello, welcome again. My name is Tessa Diamantova. I am a VISTA member. I served twice once in Los Angeles with the Los Angeles Promise Zone, and another time in Grand Rapids, Michigan with a refugee resettlement agency. All right, we see some people coming in with kind of where they're from. I see some people from UCSD, which is my undergrad school that I went to. I see some people from Tennessee, Mississippi, Scranton, Pennsylvania, excuse me. UCSD is very exciting. Arlington, Virginia, New York City. A lot of people from San Diego. Well, this is excellent. So many people from San Diego. Well, this is super exciting for me. Thank you guys so much. All right. We do have a poll question for you. We do want to know how familiar you are with AmeriCorps. A box will pop up on your screen and you can choose your answer there. We want to know, are you very familiar and already know a lot about AmeriCorps and VISTA? Somewhat familiar, maybe you know someone who served, but you don't know a lot about the programs, or are you not familiar at all? All right. I cannot believe how many people are from UCSD. This is kind of incredible. I'm very excited to see my fellow UCSD people. All right, let's see. Okay, so we have, so nobody is very familiar. That is great. That tells me that you are definitely in the right place to sort of learn stuff. We have most people at 56% are not familiar at all, and somewhat familiar at 44%. This is the perfect opportunity for you to answer any kind of particular questions you have or get a really good overview. So that's very exciting to hear. Thank you so much for answering this question. No matter where you are and how much you may or may not know, our goal today is to share with you about the details of the VISTA program and kind of answer any questions that you have so you walk away informed. All right. So what we're going to do currently at the moment is we're going to start with AmeriCorps in general. What is AmeriCorps? Like the military or Peace Corps, AmeriCorps is a way to serve your country. AmeriCorps sends people power and funding to communities across the country, connecting individuals and organizations to help those communities tackle their toughest challenges. AmeriCorps is an opportunity for Americans of all ages and background to give their time and their talent. It offers a variety of service opportunities from the classroom to the outdoors and pretty much everything in between. No matter what you're passionate about, where you're from, or why you choose to serve, AmeriCorps is your chance to be the greater good. AmeriCorps engages approximately about 75,000 members in intensive service each year, more than 21,000 locations across the country. To date, there are more than 1 million alumni or people that have officially served as AmeriCorps members. Within AmeriCorps, there are 3 ways to serve. The first is state and national, the second is NCCC, and lastly, VISTA. All 3 have opportunities to build skills and leadership while making an impact in communities. But today, we're going to help you with to get the basics of our AmeriCorps VISTA program. Before we dive into kind of all the particulars about the VISTA program, though, we do want to start off with a quick note on COVID-19. The coronavirus has had a dramatic impact on how we live our lives and how we do serve communities, and our agency continues to keep a very close eye on the situation, even all these months later. We do currently have AmeriCorps members serving and doing so safely, serving remotely in some cases. We call this teleservice. The opportunities to teleserve does vary from project to project. It is not universal or permanent, but a result of a pandemic. to allow members to continue serving during this time. We are accepting applications and recruitment is year-round, so we encourage you to apply whenever you feel comfortable to serve. Lastly, we know that AmeriCorps and service is going to play a much more important role than ever before to help communities recover. And we want you to be aware of all of those opportunities to be a part of that. And we really do hope you consider AmeriCorps service as a viable option. We have a website of frequently asked questions where you can find answers to any questions that you have. The link is on the slide, and we're also posting the website to the chat. All right. Let's talk about AmeriCorps VISTA's mission. AmeriCorps VISTA supports efforts to address poverty by providing opportunities for Americans to dedicate a full-time service on a project that will create or expand initiatives designed to empower individuals and communities in overcoming poverty. Since 1965, over 220,000 American in the VISTA program have joined the fight against poverty by helping local organizations expand their capacity to make change. Members serve in a nonprofit or local government to help out carry out the mission through fundraising, grant writing, volunteer recruitment, and so much more. You will gain experience in project management, partnership development, resource development, among other areas. The opportunity to serve in the AmeriCorps VISTA program can help launch, pivot, or provide new career opportunities while you serve individuals and local communities. So let's talk about what you need to be in order to become an AmeriCorps VISTA members. It's pretty simple. The candidates must be 18 years or older, a citizen, a national or legal permanent resident alien, and pass a criminal background check. Overall, candidates must have a high school diploma or equivalent to serve as an AmeriCorps member. Individual sponsors may have additional educational need. It does depend, but most of the time I've seen they just want that high school diploma. Candidates must be willing to make a full-time, one-year commitment unless they're choosing to serve in the summer program. Sponsors a variety of skill and educational requirements from potential members to completing the assignment successfully. Thriving members are practical professionals that can champion sustainable solutions. We've had members that start AmeriCorps service with no graphic design or grant writing or some other skill experience like that. But because they were flexible and committed to learning, they developed their skills in these areas. You can even say national service kickstarted their career. In fact, 80% of AmeriCorps members credit AmeriCorps with their successful career transition, which is pretty cool. Standard members. So there are two types of members. The first is standard and the second is our summer associate members. We're going to talk about our standard members first. Members serving in the AmeriCorps VISTA program serve full-time, 1 year long. They build capacity in a nonprofit and public agency to help them more effectively generate the commitment of private sector resources, encourage volunteer services at a local level, and empower individuals and communities overall. Here's some key characteristics of the standard member program. This includes anti-poverty project, full-time, 1 year term, rolling enrollment with thousands of opportunities. You can apply kind of any time of the year that you would like, a living allowance and non-competitive eligibility after a year of service, and healthcare assistance as well as child care assistance is available. So there is also the Summer Associate Program, which is a little bit different. The AmeriCorps VISTA Summer Associate Program offers individuals the opportunity to become engaged in a community through an existing AmeriCorps VISTA projects for 8, 9, or 10 weeks only during the summer. Here's some key characteristics of the Summer Associate Member Program, including still an anti-poverty project. However, it is 8, 9, or 10 weeks long, not a year long. It begins in May, so there is not rolling enrollment, but it begins in May and ends no later than early September of the same year. It is supposed to be in the summer, the school summer, and you are permitted to perform direct service, and you have a living allowance, and is paid at the same rate as it would a standard member. You're not paid less. All right. So we talked a little bit about the mission, what type of members you serve, things like that. So let's talk about where you can serve. Members in the VISTA program serve with projects in each of the 50 U.S. states and all U.S. territories, including Guam, places like that. And there's your opportunities in both rural and urban areas. AmeriCorps is also a network that connects you with a nonprofit, faith-based, or public organization advancing a cause that you care about. We've previously talked a lot about like the mission, where you can serve, what you need to be to serve, things like that. But right now, what we're going to talk about is the actual project to be working on. As we mentioned, through capacity building activities such as fundraising, grant writing, research, and volunteer recruitment, AmeriCorps members in the VISTA program serve in an office setting, and they gain leadership and experience skills in that area. But you choose the service opportunity that aligns with your passions, and we have thousands of opportunities in the focus areas listed. Let's kind of go over some. The first one is education. You can develop a volunteer mentor program to support students in their academic achievement and keep them on track to graduate. Build the next generation of tech leaders by organizing robotics after-school programs for low-income youth. Or you could just design cost-effective solutions that support teachers and tutors, which are really important. For economic opportunity, you can create partnerships that bring new economic opportunities to out-of-work coal miners, or serve to develop financial literacy trainings or connect people to jobs. Then you can support our veterans and their military families. You can recruit volunteers and raise funds to provide housing and services for veterans without homes. You can help that disaster services by supporting volunteer recruitment and placement to ensure coordination and support between organizations that are assisting disaster survivors. You can promote healthy future by promoting health and wellness, combat the growing opioid crisis, bridge the gap between individuals and health services, and tackle food insecurity by fundraising or developing donations that connect resources to local families. Lastly, you can expand an economic development project to address environmental stewardship by fighting against financial barriers impacting farm workers and marginalized minority populations. Such a VISTA project would include using and developing skills in grant writing, architectural planning, and urban planning. So it should not be a surprise that members serve with some of America's leading nonprofit, faith-based, or community organizations. Here are just some of our partners where we serve to bring people together, connecting individuals and organizations to help communities tackle their toughest challenges. All right, let's talk about the benefits of serving. There are many benefits during and after service. Members receive a bi-weekly modest living allowance to cover basic expenses during their year of service. If you do have questions with that, we will answer questions at the end of this presentation, so please feel free to do that. You also have professional development opportunities. Members have the opportunity to attend in-person or virtual training to learn how to be a community development change agent, such as volunteer management, recruitment, or even grant writing. Loan deferment and interest forbearance, which is my personal favorite. Individuals in approved AmeriCorps positions may be eligible for forbearance for most federally guaranteed student loans. In addition, interest payments that accrue during service may be eligible for repayment by AmeriCorps. Relocation travel allowance. Your travel allowance will be based on the direct mileages between the zip code of your home of record, which is defined as your permanent address that you list in your application, and the zip code in your VISTA project site, regardless of the mode of transportation you used. Doesn't matter if you fly or drive. Non-competitive eligibility. AmeriCorps VISTA is the only AmeriCorps program that allows members to earn federal non-competitive eligibility, giving members an edge in the federal hiring process. You're not going to see that unless you are a Peace Corps member or a veteran. And Service Award. Members can choose between the Sequel Education Award or the cash stipend. The Sequel Education Award, which is valued about $6,000, maybe more like $6,200 now, is offered to individuals who complete a term of service and can be used to pay for a range of educational expenses, like repaying qualified student loans or future tuition payments. You can earn up to full 2 education awards with multiple service terms. VISTA members also have the option of about an $1,800 cash stipend in place of the Sequel Education Award. And lastly, you can join a network of like-minded leaders who are passionate about improving communities. AmeriCorps alumni also receive access to special benefits and resources. For example, many colleges and universities will match the education award and offer additional AmeriCorps scholarships, which is great. We just mentioned one of the benefits of serving is professional development. Members can jumpstart a career and gain transferable skills employers value, including leadership, teamwork, and problem solving. As a member, you may also gain more technical skills, such depending on the project that you're serving in. This connects jobs to leading employers. Once you've completed your service, you can leverage the employers of National Service Network, which connects you with hundreds of employers from the private, public, or nonprofit sectors who are committed to hiring AmeriCorps VISTA alumni, which is excellent in my opinion. All right, so let's talk about what to expect. What we're gonna do is I'm gonna talk about, usually I have a fellow person that I present with. So I'm gonna talk about her experience, her professional experience in terms of what to expect. Her name is Crystalline Dupree. When Crystalline was a member, she attended to a number of webinars. This included the new member webinar orientation. This online orientation introduces members to the terms, condition, and benefits of service and key programming principles at the start of their service. But kind of more helpful to her, she had a lot of professional development opportunities. This was things like building sustainability into a volunteer program, writing winning proposals, advice from an experienced grant reviewer, webinar as life on a service member, a webinar just on living on the living allowance, and then teleservice resources for VISTA members. Lastly, she had her guide to life after AmeriCorps, which assists you in your transition from service to life after AmeriCorps in whatever form it may take, continuing your education, finding a job, or serving even again. And that was really, really helpful to her. These are all, just for something that she always says, grant writing is one of the most useful skills you can have, and that was a really great program for her, as well as building sustainability into volunteer programs, because essentially you can use those skills in building sustainability into any program that you're working in. So those are two very useful things that she was able to learn from. In terms of what to expect, I'm going to tell you how I prepared for my year with AmeriCorps VISTA and what I did experiencing living in Los Angeles, a rather expensive city. So this is what I personally experienced rather than professionally. First, let me talk about housing. About 5 months before I started my first day, I created a very detailed budget from everything, how much transportation cost, how much I paid even for birthday gifts. Using this, I calculated what my rent would be. I set it for about 60% of my paycheck, and I started looking for an apartment. The next thing I did, which I recommend to all people, was I reached out to my organization because, like many other people, I did not know how to get a place to live. So I asked for help. They told me a lot of things. They first asked me their staff and other people if anyone wanted to house a member, which I ended up not doing, but it's a really great option. They also told me where to find safe and cheaper housing in Los Angeles, as well as introducing me to fellow members to see if we could be roommates. I ended up finding a really good apartment based on the recommendation for housing areas, as well as using some of the resources that they gave me to find housing, which was great. Now, let me tell you about my year. While some other members did not do this, and it isn't required, I chose to receive public benefits. In fact, I was helped by some of the staff of my organization and went through the process alongside some of the clients I was indirectly serving. I received both medicated SNAP, or food SNAPs, as it's kind of more colloquially known. This was pretty helpful, and I often went to farmers markets where you can get double your SNAP benefits for fruits and vegetables, which was great. I also want to share about my daily life with the personal connections I had. While this is not universal, I served with 4 other members, and we were all pretty close. We went around Los Angeles and found everything that was free to do and kind of visit together. It was really nice because we all understood what it meant to be an AmeriCorps member and the challenges and the fun experiences that entailed. One of the other members had moved to Los Angeles like me, while another was born in Los Angeles. That was great because he knew Los Angeles really, really well, and we had a wonderful time getting to know the city through him. The last thing I'll say is this: I lived very frugally and relied on my fellow members and other family and friends for support, for fun, for advice. But the best advice I can give was from an AmeriCorps alumni. She told me to never turn down food. I never did. All right, let's talk about the application process. You should start your application process about 6 months before you're available to start serving. This is because the application process can take a few months with the submitting, the interviews, and the background checks. Well, it is not necessarily like you're going to miss your chance if you don't start your application project process about 6 months before. We still do want to recommend that you kind of aim for that. I think 3 months to 2 months before is also okay. To apply, you will need to first research opportunities. Visit the My AmeriCorps portal to begin your search. You can find the program, the location, and time commitment that fits you. You can apply up to 10 different opportunities. So be sure to take notes on those opportunities that interest you so you can apply for them later after your search. You will be required to create a profile, and you will have a required set of information and to complete the registration. To create a profile, you will need first your social security number and date of birth, your address, including the zip +4, your contact information, including a phone number and valid email address, your education level, military status, language skills, and interest area. In creating your profile, it is important to gather and identify all of the information for your profile in advance, because some of your progress will not be saved and at each step of the profile creation stages. If any step is incomplete, you will have to start over, which we don't want. Then you're going to create an application. Here you'll input personal and professional information as well as your motivational statement. You also need 2 references to complete your application. Just a little tip from me as an alumni, professional experience is excellent. Totally, you should have that on your application. But if you have a volunteer experience that's really good, I just do recommend that you put as much effort into that as well. Then you're going to submit your application. Once you complete your application, go back to the opportunities you want to apply for and submit your application. You can submit the same application to multiple opportunities. Just as mentioned, there is a required motivational statement. And if you're interested in applying to one more than opportunity, we do recommend that you tailor that statement for each one. Once you've applied, you can start your journey with AmeriCorps VISTA. All right. That was a lot of information. Please write your questions in the Q&A and we will be very happy to answer them. Also, happy first week for UCSD members. So let's look in the Q&A. I don't see any questions so far, but I'll let people kind of go in. All right, we have our first question. How many hours a week would you commit for either the summer or standard VISTA program? This is a great question. So you are required to give about 40 hours a week. It's like a full-time job. The only time that you would not be serving 40 hours a week is if the organization itself considered a full-time day to be less than that 8 hours. So if they had it only, only that less than that 8 hours. So if their workday was 6 hours for some reason, then that's how many hours a week you would give. And this is both for for the summer and standard program. All right. Do we have to report in person or will we work from home? Also a great question. So the kind of answer to that question is that it depends on the project that you're working with. A lot of AmeriCorps people right now do have that option to teleserve, but it's not universal. And it's not going to be permanent. So at the moment, it depends on the organization, but a lot of organizations are allowing their members to work from home just so that they can be safe. Do we have to wear a AmeriCorps shirt every day? No, you do not. I personally, sometimes you may be asked to wear it on Fridays is something that at least I've seen kind of across the board, but no, you do not need to wear an AmeriCorps shirt every day, though they are comfy. I wear them all the time. What is the average acceptance rate for all applicants? AKA, is it highly competitive or competitive in certain areas? So that is a kind of great question, but difficult question to answer. There isn't really an average acceptance rates because sometimes we have very popular programs like Feeding for America is going to be a little bit more competitive to be accepted in, just because it's a more well-known nonprofit, for example, whereas some nonprofits are in rural areas that are very local, so you're just not going to see as many people applying to them. However, AmeriCorps is I wouldn't say it's not competitive because it still is. It is still a national service program. We do want excellence from our members, but it is more about supporting members in their journey to service. So having a really robust resume is not going to hurt you in any way. It's just not necessarily going to harm you if you're applying to something and you're there to learn and be innovative. So it is competitive in certain areas. If you're applying to a more well-known nonprofit, more people are going to apply to it. But it does vary by program by program. And if you have no graphic design experience, but you want to become a graphic design member, a lot of organizations are happy to have that. How is the AmeriCorps VISTA program different from the other AmeriCorps programs? So there are two main ways that AmeriCorps VISTA, this is an excellent question, are different. The first way is that AmeriCorps VISTA is our anti-poverty program. That doesn't mean that we don't work in things like climate change. It just means that we're working on things related to climate change to help disadvantaged communities, low-income communities. So, it's about making the air cleaner, for example. So some way it has to relate back to fighting poverty. The other way that it's different is that AmeriCorps VISTA is what we call our indirect service program. The way that I describe this is you're there to make sure that the organization's work is efficient. I kind of think of the best way to do this is kind of give an example. When I worked at a refugee resettlement agency, I had a VISTA member who was asked to help with our inventory process. When a refugee comes over from their country of origin, they often are in a like in an apartment or something like that, and they need a certain number of toothbrushes and pillowcases and things like that. This inventory process before the AmeriCorps VISTA member was there was asked to, took about 2 to 3 hours a day, particularly if there was more than 5 families coming in, which was pretty regular. So that meant that, there would be weeks on end where 2 to 3 hours a day, our staff members couldn't work on anything else. Our VISTA program, our VISTA member, what he did is he learned to code, created a digital app, and digitized the inventory process using a grocery store barcode scanner. And he reduced that process from 2 to 3 hours a day to 2 to 3 hours a week, as well as really reducing the amount of kind of human error that we saw. A staff member is not going to have the time to learn how to code and kind of focus on this problem, but you as an AmeriCorps member can. You are able to kind of sit there and try to think of innovative solutions to be more efficient, to better help people in the organization. So that is how it's different. You do not do direct service. You're not working directly with people. You're not driving people to medical appointments. You're not building houses, nothing like that. What you're doing is working with staff members in an office setting. Hope that answers your question, Jacob. Let me know if it didn't. Oh, there was a question. There was a second question. Daniel, just re-ask the second question if you could, because I don't remember what it is either. I'm sorry. Do you have to reach out and have a relationship with communication with the organization you'll be working for before applying? No, you just apply. They look over your resume like they're looking over kind of a job position, and they'll accept you or not. I was a VISTA leader. I was heavily involved in the hiring process, and plenty of our members had never even been to Michigan, which is where I was serving. So you do not. You can just apply. Though it wouldn't harm you if you did. I won't lie. Yes, so I think I kind of mentioned before about what indirect service is, kind of the description of it, in terms of making the projects more efficient for organizations and things like that. State and national is like a volunteer who's a super volunteer. They do things directly with service. We call them our community-facing organization, and that just means that they're working with people directly from the community, building houses, tutoring, things like that. So that's really the big difference between the two. AmeriCorps VISTA looks amazing on a resume, I'm not gonna lie, because you're doing the work that you'd be doing in a kind of a higher level nonprofit or the federal government. So something to think about. Is the standard AmeriCorps applicable for everyone or only for undergraduate? It is for everyone. AmeriCorps, the process and the application, I believe the only I believe you have to be, you cannot be over 99 to apply, and has nothing to do with your undergraduate program degree. We've had people who are joining us that are in their 50s and just thinking about changing their careers, which is excellent. I always love that. So yeah, is the standard AmeriCorps applicable for everyone? Yes, is the short answer to that. Do you have any tips for AmeriCorps applicants or professional areas we should emphasize in your application? Okay, so the biggest tip that I can give you is this. When you are in your professional areas, you should, of course, show why you're interested in joining this position. If you don't have any graphic design experience, that's fine too. Just kind of emphasizing your innovation, your reliability, things like that. Very important. However, a little tip from me as an AmeriCorps VISTA leader, who is, like I said, very heavily involved in the hiring process. A lot of the times I see members don't put as much for the volunteer application, which is normal. You probably do a little bit less in terms of your professional, area than your volunteer area. But if you put in good and / recent volunteer areas, that is the way that we are able to kind of, I don't know what the word is, but when we send your application off to VISTA headquarters to accept you, that is what they ask. They ask about your volunteer experience. So that's my biggest tip, is that if you want to make it easier on your organization, as well as just be somebody who really seems to understand the spirit of AmeriCorps VISTA, is to put a little bit more emphasis on your volunteer program than you would a general application. They are almost as equally important, really, is what I will say. If you don't have any volunteer experiences, don't worry about it. Think of something, but if you do, please put it on there. Can you deny an opportunity if you get chosen? Yes, you can say you don't want that opportunity if you get chosen. What happens is that they'll send you an email that says you've been chosen to do this opportunity, and you can hit deny and just say you don't want it. You have another thing you want to do. Is transportation provided? So I will say that this is something more that's going to depend on the program that you're joining. To be transparent, overall, I've seen most people that transportation is not provided. However, when I lived in Los Angeles, I didn't have a car, but they paid for all of my transportation. So if I used a Lyft, they paid for the Lyft. If I had to go, I had a bus pass, it was expensive, they paid for all of that. So it just does depend on the program. It's the short answer of that. How long does the motivational statement need to be? And is it part of the application process where you can start and save it? It is part of the application process where you can start and save it. So if you need to stop halfway through, you don't need to, you're fine. You can just say save and end. Technically, the motivational statement does not need to be any length, but I would recommend about 800 to 1,000 words. Any shorter than that, it's going to look a little spare. Any longer will be too long. So that is my recommendation for you as an insider. Does AmeriCorps have a highest need area for volunteers? Where can I find that? We don't necessarily have a highest need area for volunteers, just because in general, highest need can be kind of complicated. I do know that locations like the Midwest, for example, are considered to be kind of high priority areas, it's a rather big area, but that's just something for you to think about. If you're looking for places like, like very well-known areas that have a lot of poverty, you can kind of find those areas yourself in terms of filtering. So you can say like what location you want and things like that. All right. Excellent. Okay, good. I'm glad we found this second question. Do you have to report in person or will you work from home? So quick thing is, the answer is it depends on the program. However, many programs are still supporting teleservice efforts, just to keep people safe. And so a lot of AmeriCorps members are currently working from home. And yes, I think this is not a permanent thing that's going to last. It's not necessarily something that isn't going to last until after sort of the pandemic goes away. But at the moment, we're still supporting that. It's just not as It's just not something that's going to stay. So the answer is it depends on the program. If you have to report in person on from home, but teleservice is still an option that many organizations are still using. Do you know how the non-competitive eligibility federal job recruitment pool after people serve in AmeriCorps works? Yes, I do. And this is a really good question. So the question is, how does NCE or non-competitive eligibility work? So this, okay, when you apply to a federal job, you have your resume is going to be put through an algorithm, and it's based on how many like special words you use, the questions that you answer, things like this. And let's say that you need to have you get an algorithm that gives you a score of like 80. So what happens is that the algorithm will determine if your application is put into the hands of a real life person. So it doesn't guarantee that you're going to get a job. All it does is it really increases the chances that somebody in real life will actually look at your resume. My colleague Crystal Dupree, so I really briefly mentioned not that long ago, she had applied with one application without NCE and the other one with. And the application with NCE made it through the algorithm process. They thought she was great. They interviewed her. They offered the position. She accepted the position, and now she's now at the current job. She's my colleague now. But her first application without non-competitive eligibility never made it to a real life person because she just didn't score high enough. So you need to have, let's say, like 95 in order to make it past that first step. And with non-competitive eligibility, she had that 95, but without, she like had 80 or something like that, and she wasn't able to get past. So that's just sort of how it works. It just makes it way more likely for you to make it past that first step in the algorithm. Hope that answers your question. For college students, are unpaid interested in related area weighed the same as volunteer experiences? Yes, that is a perfect example. Excellent is perfect for volunteer experiences. In fact, I'll tell you, that is one of my favorite things to put down because you obviously do a lot. You do it for a long time, and it looks really great because it's very similar to kind of the work that you'd be doing at an AmeriCorps VISTA level, just not as kind of without you have a lot more responsibility as an AmeriCorps VISTA level, and you have a little bit more higher level work than an unpaid internship. So yes, great thing. What's the maximum number of organizations you can apply to? So technically you can apply to 10 organizations at one time. However, if you apply to an organization, they deny you or something like that, and you just keep re-applying, you can apply as many as you want. You can apply to 10,000 if you wanted to. You just can't do it all at the same time. All right. Can you go into more detail about the working environments of AmeriCorps and AmeriCorps VISTA differ? So my guess is this is a question about AmeriCorps State and National, or NCCC, and AmeriCorps VISTA. And it's a really great question, and one that can be sort of, I really do sort of support people in kind of understanding this difference. So NCCC is our disaster response branch. So like I said, if you remember, I said this way at the beginning, there are 3 branches of AmeriCorps. The first one is NCCC, the second one is State and National, and the last one is AmeriCorps VISTA. So NCCC is our disaster response branch. You go around the country and you respond to disasters. This can be hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, fires, droughts, things like this. That branch, you are doing a lot of physical work. You're, lifting of supplies, rebuilding towns after a fire or a flood, doing cleanup, things like that. So that is not, this is more of that like down to earth. You are out in this disaster, kind of doing things with your hands, that sort of thing. With AmeriCorps VISTA, or excuse me, AmeriCorps State and National, what you are is you are a volunteer that is a super volunteer, like I said. So this could be things like you are doing a lot of work directly with clients. You're doing the things that a volunteer would do at an organization, driving people to medical appointments, tutoring, building houses, working at a food pantry line, things like that. Whereas AmeriCorps VISTA is what we call indirect service. And if you kind of remember the story told about the AmeriCorps member that learned how to code and digitize this inventory process so that instead of taking 2 to 3 hours a day, it took 2 to 3 hours a week. That is what they're doing in terms of sort of that indirect service. You're not working on the food pantry line. You are not volunteering. What you're doing is you're trying to make the projects of an organization, their practices, their best practices more efficient, and to work smoother, work better, work quicker, have more of an outreach and things like that. So you're just going to have more of an office environment with AmeriCorps VISTA. You're going to be doing the work that you'd be doing if you were a AmeriCorps VISTA, if you were working at more of a higher level nonprofit area or working with the federal government, where you're going to try to always be looking for that innovative start. Sort of hope that kind of explains the differences between the two. The big one is, I'll just say, is that you're working in an office for AmeriCorps VISTA, and state and national, you're working with people. That's very basic, but I think that's sort of the most vague way I can tell the difference. For the second question, suppose a person applies and stated it might take 6 months to a person to get in. Would you expect that long enough for many AmeriCorps jobs to change to report person? I couldn't really answer that question because I have no idea what the pandemic is going to look for in 6 months. If you are looking for a position that is going to be report in person only or always work from home, I could not guarantee that would you look for. And I could not tell you just because I don't know what AmeriCorps, I don't know what the pandemic is going to look like. All right. I don't see any more questions, but I'll give you like another couple of seconds to do that. And I don't see any in the chat. All right. I think then we can go on to the next slide. All right. So how likely are you to apply to serve in AmeriCorps VISTA? This is just our next poll question. We are really, really happy. We want to know, now that you have more information about it, we kind of want to know where you're thinking about applying to serve with AmeriCorps VISTA. Are you very likely to apply, just thinking about it, or not sure, or not likely at all? And we'll give you guys a minute. I just want to say it's super exciting to see everybody from San Diego because I really miss California. I no longer live there, so it's exciting to see all these people from my old school. I learned about AmeriCorps VISTA through attending a very similar program like this that was held at UCSD, so makes me happy. I have one more question I'll answer really quick while everybody's into the polling question. If AmeriCorps job only requires coding and other tasks that doesn't require physical presence, can be the job work from home? Again, like we said, it does depend on the organization, but the idea is that you're going to be working in the community that you're in. So they do usually require a physical presence. I will say though that with the pandemic, a lot of things have changed. So it would generally depend, is what I will say, on the organization itself. All right. Let's see what that poll answer is. All right, this is very exciting. We have about 43% are very likely, 43% are thinking about it, and 14% are not sure. If you are not sure, we are going to post in the chat about, how you can reach us out. So it's called Vista Outreach at cns.gov, and it'll be posted in the chat. So if you have any questions for us, but everybody else, particularly the people who are just thinking about it, this is a great opportunity for you. We're really excited to have you. Thank you so much for attending our webinar. If you have any additional questions, like I said, please contact Vista Outreach at cns.gov or contact the National Service Hotline at 1-800-942-2677 if you need any help with your application. They're really great with that. If you don't have internet access, also the National Service Hotline can help you complete and submit your application too. Though you are doing this, so you probably do have internet access. Like I said, it was really great talking to you guys all today. Have a wonderful rest of your day. I have one last question. If I want more information about the health insurance for a position, who do I reach out to? That would be a great question to send us at vistaoutreach@cns.gov, or you can call that National Service Hotline number. We can try to help you give you that a little bit more information related to that. So if you want more information about that, we can send it off to you. All right, I will let you guys go with the extra 10 minutes. Thank you so much and have a wonderful rest of your day.